on a troublesome sort of low level. Our new neighbours moved in. Do you want specific dates? Sorry.
No, it's fine. Just roughly like how many years ago?
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No,
yeah. So they moved in nearly 3 years ago, and from the start we tried to be as neighbourly as possible, welcoming them into new environment, new neighbourhood for them. Got a single mother with a lot of children, and it started off with sort of more just children playing issues, which we tried to deal with, but were met with a bit of hostility. But we kept going, and generally we kind of lived a little bit on eggshells with them for a long time, really. They'd often knock on the door, the son would often knock on the door and ask to borrow things and like fix bikes and things like that, which we'd do. I'd lend him things,
Right.
taking him out in the car when he's asked to like pick up stuff that he's got off, like free off Facebook kind of thing. Just try and be neighbourly. That was like the approach. Just hope that things would calm down, but things didn't in the background. There was always incidents.
What sort of incidents did you experience?
Sort of threatening behaviours towards our son. I think he was targeted because we challenged him, them, about the behaviour. They had a sort of threatening looking dog at the time, and he used to threaten my son with him a lot. Threaten him, sort of, you'd find him, my son, stuck in a garden with the lad, sort of like keeping him in there with the dog at the gate to whichever garden. He threatened him with a BB gun and a slingshot.
That must have been really hard for your lad.
Yeah, it's totally new. I mean, we've got a quiet little sort of corner off the main street, and there's lots of nice, just children, similar age, similar outlook, just fun and friendly, and never really any sort of animosity or major issues. The odd falling out, but nothing sort of threatening or anything to cause sort of distress like that. It's kind of like they tried to alienate everyone away from my son. We were getting issues with stuff sort of vandalised, sort of our fence got broken. What else happened? We had stuff stolen out of the back garden from over the fence, which they'd later acknowledge that they'd done, or they'd try and pretend they hadn't, but the items were in their garden and they could only be reached just sort of almost like playful. It's almost like they seem to think we're just
bit of a mind game rather than an actual.
Yeah, it was like entertainment, I suppose. You felt with him in a worrying way, because often he'd do things and wait for you to sort of spot them or find out, and you'd kind of know, and you'd broach it with him in a subtle manner, so you don't want to be accusatory, and he'd sort of play along, and then you'd later find out that he'd done it, and just frustrating, really. Behind closed doors, me and my partner, we'd talk about it, and we'd be worried. We'd later find out that he doesn't go to school, and find out that neither of the older children go to school for various reasons. And we're supportive to the mum. We'd talk after you'd see her coming back from dropping some of the kids off, the younger kids off at school, and we'd talk, and she'd talk about problems, but there's not much we could do.
So when did it start escalating?
Kind of, so sort of late summer that they'd arrived, and then I guess after about 6 months, there was a few times where I wasn't helpful when he'd come to the door, just because I wasn't comfortable with things he was asking me to buy things for him over the internet, because he said he had no access to money and that kind of thing, or he wanted to borrow things he knew I had, but I didn't feel either comfortable lending it to him or I was using it, But it seemed like there was always there's a bit more sort of bolshiness about the way he's asking, and a little bit animosity when just trying to create sort of boundaries.
Yeah.
And just the hostility sort of, I'd get abuse out and about if I was walking sort of from my car to the house.
What sort of abuse?
Just, it feels petty, but it's just sort of comments, name calling, swearing at us, you know, heightened, more consistent sort of hostility towards my son, my partner getting comments made to her, you know, sort of if she was ever walking home with my son from school and they were, even if he was walking the older son with the mum, you know, if my partner looked up, she'd get a volley of abuse, you know, what the bleep are you looking at and stuff like that, and there'd be nothing from the mother in terms of stopping it. You know, in the background we had a lot of noise every night, banging and crashing, like really, like someone was dropping like dumbbells on the floor from a great height. You know, I'd be sleeping on the other side of the house, earplugs in, and it'd just be vibrating through the beds and stuff like that. I was working shifts, and we'd talk to them about it though, you know, we'd approach them, we were still at that point, and there'd just be a simple, oh, that's the older son, or that's the older daughter. There'd be an acknowledgement, but never anything like, we'll do something about it, or it'll stop, or sorry, or anything like that. And it never did. You know, it was becoming like an ongoing, you know, eventually every little bit just sort of adds to it, because, you know, you might have had a bit of abuse yesterday that's left you feeling, you know, rubbish, and then that night then you can't sleep, or you kept awake till 11:30 when you want to be asleep by 9:30, 10 or something, because you've got to get up at 5. You know, your son's saying he can't sleep either, and yeah, we reached a point where there was incidents, and it was sort of like knocking and running. And I know that's, you know, because this is kind of the thing where when you're saying it, I know at the time it's frustrating saying it, people think it's petty and it's little things, but the cumulative effect and that kind of targeted sort of harassment, and you feel like it's on purpose, and you feel like they're doing it at a level which they also know is supposedly nothing will get done about it, but they know that they're clearly getting under your skin and they're winding you up and they're doing it for their own pleasure. And there's like late evenings, and particularly me being at work, I work, you know, if I'm on a later shift, you know, my partner's here on her own. If the son's gone to bed early, you know, she's kind of on her own at home in that state, and we've got neighbours similar, and all of the houses with females in that didn't have partners, or partners, you know, for various reasons weren't around, they were getting knocked late at night.
So it was almost targeting those that would be the most intimidated by
it. Felt like it, you know, and it happened a few times. And my partner said, you know, she'd come out and it's dark and she could hear like whistling and stuff like that, but she didn't know, and she was shouting who's there, and, you know, no one replying, and just, you know, just scaring her basically. So she's left sat on her own, you know, just feeling scared in her own house, and it's that uncomfortable feeling. And like that was a similar example where I tried to chat in a sort of, you know, innocently, non-accusatory about the knocking and running, and he was asking me more questions about it, you know, what happened, what did they do, you know, that kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, you know, you can please help me find them, because I'm really frustrated, you know, and I'd like to, you know, stop them. And he's like, yeah, I'll help you, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it kept happening, and then eventually, you know, I just went to them, and he admitted it, you know, he reluctantly admitted it, you know, saying, well, I wasn't doing it here, I was doing it on another street. You know, it's just like, okay, so you know, you're obviously doing it.
Going around the houses a little bit, no pun intended, just to before the
you can't, it's hard to explain. You can't, like, I don't think, you know, you take it for granted. You've got your house. I know you know, a lot of people must live in distressing situations and it's not comfortable, and I guess we've been lucky, but to lose whatever it is that makes you feel at home, you know,
Yeah, that sort of sanctuary, that safe space.
Yeah. So whether it's inside your house with the doors shut, curtains shut, or outside in the garden in the sun, just trying to do some gardening, or walking up your own path to the post box shop, your house, your car. Sorry, you know, all of a sudden every single thing, every time you wake up in the night to a noise, you know, every little aspect is affected. Every time you're driving home and, you know, you come within the last mile and you just sort of had this impending dread, or you'd rather be at work. But when you're at work, you're worried about your family that are at home, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, it becomes all consuming, unfortunately. Really, 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 really frustrating, you know, and unfortunately, it eventually got me in terms of bringing me down mentally, you know.
Were you able to get any help and support for that?
Yeah. I went to the doctors in the first summer. I had some time off work, and you know, went back and kept going. I only had a few weeks off in the end. The following summer, quite a lot of incidents and stuff further on. You know, it was a lot more significant in terms of time off and the help I needed, and you know, I'd say at both times and for all the time in between, I was either, you know, at points, you know, suicidal, which you know, it becomes like an annoying automatic sort of repeated thought, sort of broken record in the back of your mind that you don't want to think about, but you know, you get to a level of continual, you know, I guess if you're going to like diagnose it, it'd be initially be anxiety, you know, and stress.
Yeah.
That then lowers the mood and leads to the sort of clinical depression side of things. You get that side of, you know, the wishes to end things kind of side of things, you know. And you know, for various reasons, you know, times where you're just sort of looking after your son and you just got nothing to give. And he's like asking you what's wrong, why are you sad, kind of thing, and you know, it just destroys or attempts to destroy everything, you know, that kind of mood, that kind of mental health sort of thing, and the issues, you know, your family life, your relationships, the arguments that we'd have, because you know, you end up being quite brittle.
Of course, I suppose you reach the point where even when there's nothing actively happening in terms of the ASB, the impact it's had on you is that you're still almost experiencing it, even when it's quiet outside. You're still feeling it and suffering it. So it's you know, really affecting every aspect of your life at that point.
Well, ability to work, everything, you know, and if it starts impacting your employment, you know, you start worrying about, you know, literally everything, you know. It's and then I guess what I was trying to say before is like that sense of sanctuary, like you said, like the other side to it is it turns on like a sensor in you, where you can't switch off. You're always, every noise, you know, you constantly, you know, you hear a car pulling up, or you hear a front door shut, or you know, if you're outside, or you hear like noise, or with our case sometimes it would be quite serious domestic sort of fighting within the house, you know, smashing glass, screaming and shouting, doors slamming, people coming out with, you know, blood coming out of the head, stuff like that. And they had pet rabbits and they'd bait the rabbits with their dogs, you know, just with us watching, and just things like that. Just every little bit you turn sort of this switched on to a point that is unhealthy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like hyper alert to everything that's going on.
And then every incident is like more of a bomb going off, rather than, you know, I can deal with it, it's a little thing, you know, it's just, and it brings it all back. And it's like you know, nearly 3 years, and you know, I had it the weekend and it's the same. It's like